Thank you for joining us for our workshop on GauchoSpace forums and OU blogs. The goals for this workshop are going to be to one, provide some technical information regarding some of the forum features and the different settings. Then also to provide a few different pedagogical ideas for different ways to set up the forums and different activities you can use with the forums. And then we'll also be talking about the difference between the forum activity and the OU blog activity. And we're going to do both of this largely through a number of different samples or example activities that we've set up. And we'll use those to kind of compare some of these different features. All right. So first things first, right, as I said, we're going to be talking about the forums and setting it up and going through some of the basic features first, and then we'll get into these examples that we have here. So the first thing, when you set up the forum, you're going to want to make sure you turn editing on your page, and then in the tab or the particular week that you want to add the activity, you come here to add the activity, and then you select forum from the list of possible activities. So you have the forum name and you also have the description. So this is where you can put information about for what the forum is about or anything like that. You have this feature here, display description on the course page. So what this will do is that in addition to having just the link for the forum on the page, it will also display whatever you've put in that description box. So that way, students can see directly what is in there without necessarily having to click on the link. You have 5 different forum types, and I'll provide a brief explanation here, and then we'll go through them in more detail. If you want an additional explanation or you kind of forget and you just want to review, throughout GauchoSpace, you have these helpful question marks that provide definitions for the different things and brief explanations for you. So the first one is the standard forum. So this is the one that will display the different discussion threads or the discussion topics for you. And you'll have a list of those. Students and instructors can both create those in the standard forum type. The standard forum in a blog-like format. This is again, students or instructors can create the different discussion threads. But the blog-like will display the whole post at the start rather than just the discussion topic. And again, we'll kind of show you the difference between that. The Q&A format, this is where the instructor will post a question and then students will have the opportunity to respond to that. This one, the distinctive feature of that is that the students have to post a response before they're able to see other people's. And so it's really useful for kind of like assignments or posting solutions to questions or posting weekly reading responses or something like that, where you want the students to do their own work, post it, but then they can eventually see each other's and comment on each other's own work. The other one that we'll really talk about today is each person posts one discussion. So this allows each student to post a discussion thread of their own, but they can only post one. This is kind of good, as we'll talk about, for creating individual entries for each student. And then the last one is the simple discussion. It's just a basic, everything kind of shows up on the main page. You also have here right at the start the ability to allow anonymous posts. So this then allows students to, when you select this, students can choose to post their responses or forum posts anonymously, which some instructors like that feature to create a kind of more open space for a particular forum where students don't have to worry about whether their name can be seen or not, but so just an option available for you. Next is the availability. So here you can set both due dates and cutoff dates. So these show up for different people. Yes, the instructor could post anonymously, they could select that option when they do post. Yeah, it is an option that is available.
I was just asking whether it is like they, if someone posts anonymously, can the instructor see the student name, or is the student name anonymous to the instructor as well? When
Oh,
you see it on the forum, you can see that it was posted anonymously. So that gives the benefit of students not fearing what other students will feel about them, but it also helps in um, kind of being polite and, I mean, managing the forum to be appropriate rather than kind of posting, allowing the
yeah.
students to post things that they would not have posted.
There are some ways to kind of figure out who was doing what posts, but that information isn't directly available um, to the instructor. So it's
Okay.
anonymous to the other students, and it's kind of at a basic level anonymous to the instructor, but there are some features that allow you to figure it out. But
Okay.
again, it's not, if you want to be able to track and things like that, it's generally not recommended to allow the anonymous posts.
Okay.
Um, the availability, the next one, you can adjust attachments. A useful one is the display word count. So this will display the word count in a particular post, both to the students when they're writing and after they post, as well as to the instructor when they go through and grade. So if you have kind of a minimum word count for a particular post, this is very useful to activate because it'll make the grading process quicker. These next three are a little bit more advanced, so we'll just skip through these right now. The next two main things are for grading the forums, and the first one of these is the whole forum grading option. Now this will allow you to assign a grade for the entire forum for a particular student. So even if the students have posted multiple times in a forum, you can still only assign one overall grade. And we highly recommend that you just use the point value for this. Scales are an option, but they often cause more problems than anything else. So if you do have questions about scales, you're welcome to email us at help@collaborate.ucsb.edu, and we can kind of help fine tune how you might want to use the scales. But in general, we recommend using a point value. You assign the point value in the maximum grade. And then there are three different grading methods. The first is simple direct, which allows you to assign a number grade. There's a grading guide, which allows you to create a number of different criteria that you assign point values for. And then the rubric is very much the same, except you can only, the rubric is a little bit more restrictive than the grading guide. And I'll show you the differences between those with some examples. The other major grading option is to use the ratings. Now, the main benefit for using the ratings is that it will allow you to assign ratings or effectively grade individual posts as opposed to grading the forum as a whole. And there are 5 different rating types: average, count, maximum, minimum, and sum of ratings. Again, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about using these options to create grading schemes for the forums. So we recommend that if you want to use this, beyond anything but average of ratings or something like that, that you reach out to us and we can help you, set up the grading scheme for it. The last major feature here is the common module settings, which is a feature of all activities, but you'll notice down here the group mode, which is particularly important. And you have 3 different options. So no groups, which means that everybody can see and reply to everybody. Separate groups, which means that students will only be able to see and respond to posts from students in their own group. And then visible groups means that they can see the posts from everybody, but they can only respond to their own group members. And when you select this, you'll also have the option for a grouping. And we have a nice help article on groups and groupings that kind of explains the difference. The main reason why you would want to do this is if you have, like a DSP group or a couple of those groups defined in your course, then you'll want to make sure that uh, that is assigned to a separate grouping of its own, so that you don't post, the forums or discussion topics to a DSP group, and that you actually have it posted to uh, the working groups that you have. So those are the basic features of the forum. And now what we're going to kind of do is go through in more detail some of those features and what they look like through these different examples. So the first option here, and this is just, will show you what a standard forum looks like, no groups applied or anything like that. And as the instructor here, you have the option to add a new discussion topic. So I'll refer to it sometimes as a discussion topic. Sometimes I'll call it a thread. That just sort of means the same thing here. In addition, so this is a student view that you can see right here. The students also have the option to add this new discussion topic. So in this case, one thing that I use this for is for like unit reviews. So I allow students to post their own review questions or topics and things like that. You have two ways you can set that up. One would be for the instructor to simply create the discussion topics for each unit ahead of time. This is very helpful because, as you can see, if you allow the students to start posting their own discussion topics, or if there's nothing there, then they're just going to post their own discussion topic, maybe post a question inside of it, and they might not even look at other people's, or you end up with this really long list of discussion topics. So one way to help manage it as an instructor is, when you have this set up, is to just go ahead and create the topics ahead of time, however you want to define them, and then have the students respond inside of those threads. Another feature that I just want to point out here at the start is you have this forum summary report, which gives you an overview of the students and their participation in a given forum. So this is in the unit review, so you can see the number of discussions posted, number of replies, total posts, so on and so forth. You can also use this to navigate between the different forums, or you can actually see their engagement with the forums as a whole by selecting all forums in course up here. So this will kind of allow you to keep track of student engagement. It allows you to see the number of times they've viewed a given or viewed the forums and things like that. So that's a helpful feature here with the forums. So again, this is the basic setup that you have here. And then when you click on the discussion topics, it'll open up and you'll see the list of posts and questions and things like that from students. There's a number of different ways to display them. The default way is sort of in this nested form. And the way this works is you get the original post here. This one that's slightly indented is a reply to this one. And then this one that's indented again is a reply to that reply. So you can sort of see them in this nested form, which can be very helpful. To reply, you select the reply button here. And then instructors have the option also to reply privately. So if you want to just send a private reply to a student on their post, you can use this option here. It's an effective way to provide written feedback, especially if you're kind of grading and things like that. This can be one way to go about doing that. So that is the standard forum, no groups or anything like that. This is what this next one is, the standard in the blog style format. So as you can see, rather than having a list of discussion topics, you actually have a list, or you have the full posts for each of the discussions or the new topics created. In this case, the activity here, this is one that I do in my course, is that I give the students basically three different ethical dilemmas or three different scenarios, and I ask them to respond to one. So this format is a little helpful because the student, instead of having to kind of click on each of the individual topics, they can just open it up and see the full posts here, and then they can decide to discuss this topic, and this is how they select and reply to it. Again, this is the student view here. In this case as well, I have assigned a grading guide. So to grade, we can select the option to grade users. That's the toggle up there. And then you'll be presented with a screen. This is the forum grading interface. You'll see all the student posts here on the left-hand side. In this case, it's just one post for this student. And then you'll have the option to scroll between students over here using these buttons. And then you can assign a grade according to the how you've set up the grading guide. So in this case, I've identified two criteria, the form and content, and each one of these will have a score out of 5 that we can assign. And again, you can set that up ahead of time. I'll show you in just a sec how to set up the grading guide. And you can assign anywhere a grade from 0 all the way up to 5. So 0 to 5 and anywhere in between. And then you can also provide additional written feedback using these comments here. This is very important because the simple grading method does not allow for written feedback. So if you do want to provide written feedback, you either need to use the reply privately option or set it up with a grading guide or a rubric. To set up the grading guide, when you go into the settings and select the grading guide as an option, when you go to save it, you'll be prompted automatically that you have to create a grading guide for it. Or if you want to come in, if you have one created and you need to edit it, you come over here to advanced grading and then edit the current form. And so this is edit the grading guide. So you have the option here to add individual criterion. So I have form and then I have content. You can add descriptions for students. So for form, maybe, I want to put a minimum word count or something there, a description for graders, and then you set the maximum score. And it can be different. You can have a different maximum score for the form and content or whatever other criterion you choose to use. And you can delete it using the X there. So this is how you go when you just add a criteria to add spaces here. And that is the grading guide. We also have a helpful article on that. Aisha has posted it in the chat as well. So that is the standard, the blog format. Again, no groups applied or anything like that, but that's also the grading guide. Another activity or use of the forum that I often use is kind of for a group project forum. And so what this would be to create a space for students in a particular group to communicate with one another for a group project maybe that they have at some time over the quarter. And in this case, right, we have the standard format, so you can see all the individual ones. However, what you notice here in the group section is that each of these discussion topics is posted to an individual group. Now, as the instructor, I can see all of them, but then from the student view, this student is in group 2, so the student can only see and respond to the posts for group 2. Now, when you create a new discussion topic using this group setup, that's fine. Thanks, Uma. Okay, when you create, in this context, create a new discussion topic as the instructor, you're going to want to make sure that you come and select the advanced option when you post your new discussion topic. And of course, you enter the subject and the message. Then you'll want to make sure that you come down to here and post a copy to all groups. And if you don't do this, then you're not going to create a topic that the students in their groups can respond to. So you want to make sure that you post a copy to all groups. And so that when you create it and you go to post it to the forum, that you've now created one discussion topic for each group. You also have the option here up top to sort based on the group. So I can have all people, or I can sort by group 1, or I can sort by group 2. This can be extremely helpful, especially in large lecture classes where you have many sections, because the TAs will also be able to sort by the groups. And in those large lectures on GauchoSpace, the sections have been automatically created as groups. So you won't just be posting to group 1 or group 2, but you can post and view and filter by individual sections. So that is the separate groups function in the standard format. Another very common use, I'll just show you right here in the visible groups option that we have here. Right, again, this is the student view here. So the student will actually have the option to see all the posts. But then when they go, for instance, into the group 1 discussion, you'll notice that they do not have the option to reply to any of these here. Right? So this student is in group 2, and they can only see what the group 1 has done. They can't respond to it. However, in the group 2 posts, they can actively respond to group 2. In the instructor view here, mostly what I want to point out in this case is the use of ratings. So in this case, I've selected the average of ratings to be able to assign grades or ratings to individual posts, and that will appear down here. And you can select, in this case, I've selected a scale of 0 to 5. And as the average of ratings, the grade that appears in the gradebook will be the average of the ratings assigned. So, Joe only has 1, so his would be a 3, whereas Anne here has a 4 and a 5, so their grade would be a 4.5. So that's how you would use and what the average of ratings, for instance, would look like. Okay, so moving on to really the next type is going to be the Q&A format. Now again, this is very useful if you want students to respond on their own before they're able to see other people's responses. And to start this, it's important that as the professor, instructor, that you add a new question. So students won't be able to input anything until you add a new question. And then once you add the new question, students will be able to respond. In this case, taking a look at it from the student point of view, right? When the student comes in, if they haven't posted, right, they'll get this prompt. This is a question and answer forum. You must first post your response. So when they come in, you'll see here again this red highlighted tag for them that they need to post first. They'll be able to see the initial question, but then they won't be able to see anybody else's responses. So they'll have to reply to this first before they can see anybody's. And then there's about a 15-minute buffer period between when they post and when they can see the other posts. This allows for editing of the student's post and things like that. In this format, I've also selected 2 features. So I've selected to use the rubric. So in this case, with the rubric, I have the same criteria here, form and content, but instead of just having a sliding scale, you have specific amounts for each of these that you have to select. I have also activated the word count so that you can easily see right down here, looking at it, the total word count for a given post. Again, this is with the rubric, right? I have to select one of these options. I can't select anything or give a grade anywhere in between. To set up the rubric, much like the grading guide, when you go to the edit settings and select the rubric option in the grading method, you will automatically, when you save it, you'll be prompted to create the rubric, or if you'd like to edit the rubric, you come here to advanced grading and then edit here. Now, as you can see, this is similar but a little bit different than the grading guide. You can add the criterion, which would enable you to add another kind of layer to it or another criterion for grading. But then you can also add a level, right? And so then this would be a case where you would have to define, if I wanted to give a different point value, I would have to define a new amount of points and create a new level in each of the criteria. Again, we have an article that explains this in more detail, but this is just a general introduction for how you can create the forum, the rubric within the forum. In this case, right, what I've set up, the activity that I've set up here is basically just a weekly reading response. And I've labeled it week 1 reading response. So one way, if you're going to do something like a weekly response or assignment or something like that, would be to create a new forum each week. And so in this case, the week 1, and then you just add a new question and everybody can respond to that one. Another way to set it up, this can get a little unwieldy because you have to create a new forum for each week. So another option that you have would be to create just a single forum with weekly reading responses. And in this case, then what you can do is add a new question for each one of the weeks, right? So in this case, there's a question for reading response for the week 1, a question for reading response for week 2. And this will then enable you to keep a single forum that has all the weekly responses in it. I have also set this one up using a grading guide. So as I mentioned, one of the drawbacks for using the whole forum grading option is that you can only grade the forum as a whole. So if there's individual responses or multiple posts from students, then it's very difficult to assign grades to individual posts. One workaround for that is that I've created a grading guide that instead of using different criteria, for each of the criterion, I make it for each question. So like response 1, so the first criterion in the grading guide is for response 1, for response 2, so on and so forth. Right? So this would enable you then to assign a score out of 5 for the first response, and then a score out of 5 for the second response, so on and so forth. Now, one of the drawbacks for that is that kind of, at the start, the student, let's say you had 10 of them. After response 1, the student would only have a 5 out of 25, 5 out of 50. But ideally, by the end of the quarter, you would have grades assigned for each of the responses. So just a little workaround for how you might go about assigning, using the whole forum option while still assigning grades for individual posts. Next, in the Q&A format, another common use would be to use it for sort of section responses. So if you wanted to have, if TAs in particular wanted to create discussion topics for their sections and then grade those responses and have a space there. So this one is set up, as I've set it up, Q&A format with visible groups. And again, so that way all the students can see the other sections, but they can only actually respond to their own sections. So again, here coming to, right, I guess this one's set up with separate groups. In any case, again, as the instructor, when you want to set up in this format, you want to come here to advanced and then make sure you post a copy to all the groups so that you create a question for each of the groups. Otherwise, they won't actually be able to respond. You can also post copies to individual groups. So let's say, for instance, in week 1, I wanted group 1 to do something. In week 2, I wanted group 2 to do something. Then I could actually post a question only for group 1 during the first week, and then I could post a question only for group 2 during the second week, or something like that. Or TAs also have this function. So if you wanted the TAs to be able to post their own questions to their specific sections, then the TAs could use this function as well. It is also possible, so when you have this selected here, if you, for instance, select just group 1 here, and then if I were to add a new question with only group 1 selected, then it will automatically post it only to group 1. So in the group section, this one's automatically selected. So 2 different ways to post it to a single group. But again, if you're just trying to post it to all the groups, this is the button that you want to make sure that you check here. So the last 2 that I want to cover are not so much necessarily different features, but 2 different features for how students can post. So specifically using the audio and video recording options, which again, we have also have another article on our help site for that. So the first one would be how to go about using the audio function. So this audio function that you have here, the idea behind this assignment is that, especially for maybe a language instructor or something like that, you could post a piece of text, and then you could have the students recite it or read it, and then they could also translate it. I've set this up in the Q&A format so that the students have to post before they see anybody else's. And then I've also set it up using the simple grade so that when you go into grade, and we find a student here who has posted, all you can enter is a simple grade right here, using a value 0 to 5. Right? And as you can see, unlike the rubric and the grading guide, there's no feedback option here, and you can just simply assign a numerical value for the grade. And again, this is the whole forum. So even though there's 2 posts here, right, you're still assigning them a single grade. Now, to use the audio recording option, so again, this is really will only be available. It will not be available to students in Safari, so it's only available through other browsers. But when they go to reply, they can select Advanced. And then for the audio recordings, it's going to be this little microphone button icon right here. So if they want to record themselves speaking, right, they click this, the little pop-up, they can start recording. And then they'll have the option to record. They can stop recording. They have the opportunity to listen to their recording. They can record again if they want. And then they can go ahead and attach the recording. And so they can just post it, either just the audio file, or they can also enter in the text and then post to forum. Again, and this has a 2-minute limit on it. So this is a nice feature to help change the forums a little bit if you want to have it be more of a dialogue. The instructor can also, if they want to respond to students, they also then have the option under here, and in the advanced option, they can also select the microphone. So you can record an audio file message for the student. You don't just have to send a text response. Finally, the last one we're going to look at is this option. So I call this the Who Am I? So this is a nice kind of introductory sort of forum that you could do. And I've set it up with 1 discussion post. So what this means is that each student is only allowed to create a single discussion topic. So the student here, when they come in, you can see this student this is Sarah, so she's already posted the discussion topic, which means she's not allowed to post another discussion topic. And so this is nice for sort of creating a space for an individual student. In this case, the assignment is for each student to post a video of themselves, maybe just a nice little introduction or something like that, and then some information, especially in this teaching online setting, putting a face with names and things like that can be really helpful. This is just one way you might want to use the video function. Also, maybe group activities or other things like that, just to create a little bit more of an interactive environment to help facilitate communication among the students and things like that. So to do that, so I'll come in here for you, right? It's going to be very similar. The student will reply and then they'll select the advanced option. And then they can select this camera icon that they have available right here. And again, this won't be available in Safari, so just Chrome and things like that. So they'll be presented with a very similar looking pop-up here, and then they can start recording, and then they can stop recording and attach it or record again based on whether they like it or not. It'll appear in this nice little window, and the instructor can play directly through this window. And again, you can record when you reply. Same idea, you can use that camera icon to record your own message or response or something like that. And you can also, with either of these options, you can still make that a private reply, so you can have a private audio or a private video message sent back to the students. So those are the main features of the forum. So sort of what I wanted to make sure and clarify, there's a difference between the forum types. So we'd had the standard forum, which gives you the discussion topics and just the links for them. The standard blog style, which gives you the full posts, and then you respond to them by clicking on discuss this topic. You have the Q&A style, which requires the instructor to add a new question, and then students can respond to it, but they have to respond before they can view anybody else's reply. And then the one discussion format, which allows each student to only create one discussion topic. We also went through the different group modes, so having no groups, having separate groups, and having visible groups. In the large lectures, this is very useful because the sections are automatically created as groups, and TAs and instructors can sort by those different sections. And it's also helpful for creating group project spaces or just having different group activities of various sorts. We also talked about the different grading options. So you have the simple grading method, which allows you, when you go into grade users, to just enter a single value for the whole forum. So even if they have multiple posts, you're just entering a single grade. You have the grading guide option, which allows you to define and create certain criteria, assign them point value, and then you can select a range, a score out of 5 for those. And then you also have the rubric option, which you have to set the specific point value. So very similar to the grading guide, but it's more restrictive because if you look here, the rubric that I've set up here, you can only assign a 1, a 3, or a 5. Right? So you, in this case, couldn't assign a value of 2 or a value of 4. So even though it's a 5-point scale, much like the grading guide I just showed you, right, it's a little bit more restrictive because unless you add a level for 2 points and 4 points, you won't be able to select it from the rubric. So that's the main difference between the rubric and the grading guide, and the rubric being slightly more restrictive. And then we also discussed the use of ratings. So I just showed you the average of ratings. We recommend, if you want to use it, that you can reach out to us and we can help you. There's a lot that you can do with the ratings options. So it's based on that, unless you're just using average of ratings, reach out to us and we'll help you sort out the ratings and what the different things you can do with them are. So those are the main features. Again, the forum types, the use of groups, and the different grading mechanisms that you have for those. And then I tried to give you a few sample ideas for different ways you can use forums to help facilitate peer-to-peer dialogue, whether it's through groups or anything like that, or teacher-student dialogue. However, there's also, a few different functions that goals you might want to accomplish with a forum, and we have the different forum type, which is called the OU blog, which can be very useful for that, and Aisha is going to discuss those now.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. Forums are such a versatile tool on GauchoSpace, so thank you, John, for giving us such a thorough step-by-step overview of their different uses. I'm going to be talking to you about OU blogs. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so I'll start by saying that there are two main things to know about OU blogs that sort of set them apart from forums. One is that they're much more conducive to long form writing and multimedia. And as you'll see in a little bit, I've sort of curated a lot of the scenarios and examples for uses of OU blogs and geared them towards sort of a multimedia or creative writing type courses. The other thing that's really noteworthy about OU blogs is the varying levels of visibility and the ease with which you can change that visibility. And that sort of allows for forums or OU blogs to function as private blogs between student and instructor, but that can also be opened up later on to be shared with other students. So as we would with just about any activity, let's walk through sort of how to add an OU blog. So first thing we want to note is that we want to make sure we have turn editing on, and then in your desired week or topic, I'm going to add an activity or resource. If OU blog does not appear in your recommended, you can either click over to the All tab or just search for it. There we go. You'll want to give the blog a name, and then in the intro or description section, you can note any details, any sort of instructions that would be pertinent for your students to know. A few key things that I want to point out in the settings here is the individual blogs setting. So there are three options available within the individual blog settings, and anytime that we want to know sort of what these different features are, I just want to remind us that we can always click on the handy question mark. It helps with defining any key terms. Any features that we want to use are usually noted, and a description is usually noted here. So in the individual blog settings, there are three settings to pick from. The first one is know or blog together in a group. This is similar to a forum in that all of the posts that the students will post are just in terms of appearing on the page, they are one long thread. And they're sort of part of one, it says that everyone is part of a bigger community. So all the post will appear sort of in one sort of big class blog in one place. The next one is separate individual blogs. This is a setting by which individual blog posts are kept private and only the instructor is able to view them. And then the third setting is the visible individual blogs. In this case, or in this setting, blogs are still kept separate. So each student still has their own separate blog. But under this setting, other students are also able to view their posts within their blog. So this opens it up to instructor and students. Next thing I want to point out is the use of tags. So tags, you may have noticed, this is a setting that appears in a number of different activities on GauchoSpace, and it's not used very often, but this is an activity in which we notice that it is particularly useful. Tags are a way of sort of organizing and providing an additional way to filter posts. So let's say you have your individual blog, or you have the individual blog setting set to know or blog together or in groups, meaning that all of the posts are going to be appearing in one large group class blog. Tags would be really useful in this case for filtering by, say, group, TA, week, reading, and the way that you would create those tags is to simply enter them here and separate them by a comma. So you can do that in this section. And then you would want to toggle, or from this drop-down menu, choose to either have predefined tags used, and those would be the ones that you may have entered. You can also require students to enter their own tags, and these are some of the options that you can pick from. Again, the differences will be highlighted in these question marks will sort of tell you what different kinds of tag options are available. So those are some of the uses of tags, and I'll be showing later on in some of the scenarios that we have set up how they function on the page. Two other things I want to highlight before we move on to some examples are grade and ratings. So if you would like to be able to assign a grade for students' post within their OU blog, this is where you would come and change from the default of no grade to either teacher grade students or use ratings. Teacher grade students functions similar to whole form grading. It allows for you to decide on a maximum grade, and we recommend sticking to points for this. Teacher grade students would be 1 grade for the post as a whole. The use of ratings allows for you to create a number of or to assign a grade for a number of or a series of posts and blogs that you have set up. And for that, if you choose use ratings, make sure that you also go into the ratings tab and decide on which of these you would like to do from the aggregate type, whether it's average of ratings or sum of ratings. These are some of the options that are available. So now we can take a look at some of the options that we have set up, and I'll be showing you both the instructor view and the student view. So this is an example of a activity for a weekly reflection. Let's say that you want to have sort of students keep a private journal or a journal where they're reflecting week by week on either concepts or readings, and they're just keeping their own separate journal. Making weekly reflections or private journal set up with the separate individual blog settings allows for the journal to remain something that is shared only between the student and the instructor. This is the instructor view of what would appear if you were opening up this activity to check on student posts. A few things that I want to point out is that there's a filter here, a way to choose which student you're viewing the post for, and it's just a handy way of filtering out students and being able to view them one by one. There's also the blog usage block over here on the right-hand side that just shows an overall use of the blog, participation, and comments. If you want to see a more in-depth view, click on View All Participation, and it takes you to this screen where you can both see posts and comments. If we go back to the post, this is another feature that I want to point out, participation by user. This button takes you to a screen that allows you to see, it's sort of a grading interface that allows you to assign a grade for each student. There's also this details button here that's really useful for any student that has started posting or commenting. The details link will appear, and if we click on this, we're taken to a page that is really useful in my opinion, because it not only has a tab for posts and for comments, but also for user grades. So this is another page on which you can enter a grade after reading the post by that student. And this sort of helps with toggling between the two and being able to view the post and then assign the grade. Another option is always to have one tab open where you have the posts opened up, and then a second one, a second window in which you've got the user grade opened up, and where you can then assign a grade and then make sure that you click Save Changes. And just a quick look at the student view. So this is, I'm logged in as Sarah Gaucho here. Sarah is able to post, she's able to view what she's posted. She can also delete any of the posts, and I just want to point out that both for instructors and for students, when they delete a post, it appears grayed out like this. Other students are not able to see it, but the student is able to view that they've deleted their post, and the instructor is also able to see. So if we go back over here into weekly reflections and sort by Sarah, we can see her initial post as well as the fact that there was one that was deleted. This is kept, of course, private between the instructor and student, as we are in the separate individual blog setting. The second scenario we have set up here is a student portfolio. This is sort of an example of the visible individual blogs. It has, from the instructor view, many of the same features, able to sort by visible individuals and view their blog posts in that way, able to click on participation by user and assign a grade, as well as, again, click into details and see each of these tabs. What's noteworthy here is that in the student view of an activity like this, students are able to also sort and view other students' blogs. So logged in as Sarah, Sarah is able to look at Joe Gaucho's blog posts. And I think what's noteworthy here is that as opposed to the class blog, which we'll get to in just a moment, the visible individual blog, much like the separate individual blog, keeps each student's blog post within their own portfolio. I think this is a useful activity or use of an OU blog in, say, a creative writing or multimedia course. Let's say you're wanting students to keep a running portfolio of their creative work throughout the quarter, but also want other students to be able to see how their work is coming along, to draw inspiration, or even just to be able to comment, which is something that can be done in this setting. Visible individual OU blogs are useful for allowing students to create or sort of keep a blog where they're keeping a running portfolio, able to view others' blogs and portfolios, and then also add their own comments. The next sort of activity we have set up to demonstrate a use of the if you were to choose to have like an open class blog, which was that first setting in the individual blogs, is an activity like a scavenger hunt. In an activity like this, the instructor, for example, has asked the students to take pictures of 5 items and post them here. And as you can see, all of their pictures by each and every student appears in one long running thread. They're able to post, and they can, the instructor here can view the participation by user and still assign a grade. But in terms of its appearance, this is a public blog and everything appears on one page. And just to give you a quick look at this from the student view, the students are also able to see it appears in the same format, that all the posts are on one page in one place. And what has disappeared in this setting is the ability to filter by student. Now for the instructor, that was still available, and it's there so that the instructor can assign a grade, but clearly here for the students, they're not able to filter by another student because everything is in one place. The last 2 things I want to go over is this use of tags that I mentioned earlier. Tags are useful, like I said, for organizational purposes. In this class blog, we have tags that appear right here under the student's post. And there is also a tags block over on the right-hand side. The instructor and students, for that matter, can filter posts based on the tags that are associated with them. And this is particularly useful, again, in a sort of large open class blog, because with a lot of students, a blog in that setting can get quite unwieldy. And so being able to, on the student side, filter based on a reading that you might have responded to, or by week, or even by group or TA, can be very helpful just to narrow down and get to what you might be looking for. And on the instructor side, it's similar. You're able to sort of view and check off that students have participated as they're required to. And within the class blog and with the use of tags, I just wanted to demonstrate real quick. Let's say a student is adding a new blog post and they are required to, based on the settings of the blog, of the OU blog, they're required to add tags. What will happen is that they will receive this sort of exclamation mark that requires them to add the tags, and they can do that by selecting. Oftentimes, once they've been used, the most commonly used ones will appear. They can also, of course, just type and pick them out that way, and then add the post. So the last thing I want to point out is we talked about using ratings. When the instructor has chosen to use ratings for grading, the rating option, or the option to give a rating, appears right under the post. It does also appear here, and there is a way to use a combination of teacher grades and ratings. We recommend that if you want to use more intricate options of grading, that you reach out to us at the Help Center, because we can help you sort of set that up and decide what would be most fitting. But I mainly wanted to point out that a rating can be given from right on the page where the posts are visible. And then, of course, this will feed it into the gradebook. And for this one, for example, we have sum of ratings chosen, so it will, over the course of the quarter, take sum of ratings as they've been assigned per post and appear in the gradebook based on a calculation of that. So yeah, John, I think, has a few things to point out in the gradebook, so I'm going to hand it back over to you, John.
All right, thanks very much, Aisha, for the discussion on OU blogs. So the last thing, and this, just pointing it out, but it comes up pretty often. We get tickets about this, to ask about setting up the gradebook for forums. Now, one way that we recommend to set them up is to start by creating a gradebook category using the add category function down here. And then you can put each of the weekly, for instance, this says whole forum grade for week 1 through week 4, right? And so you can put these individual grade items inside of this category. And what this enables you to do is, one, it will calculate a single forum grade based on the different weights and the average of these elements. But then sometimes instructors like to have the option, for instance, to drop the lowest, right? So you might have 10 forum assignments, but the students only have to do 8. So to set that up, you can use this drop the lowest function here and enter however many of the lowest that you want to drop. You also have the option to exclude empty grades. And that can be useful, for instance, if you have created a separate forum for different groups. So you have 4 different groups and you have 4 different forums. And so each group is only being graded for one of the forums. So you can exclude the empty grades so that they don't receive zeros for the other forums that they're not responsible for. So again, that's just a quick way to sort of set up the gradebook for a forum. And it works both with the whole forum grade or with the weekly ratings, and you can set them up that way. If you have questions about the gradebook setup or anything else to do with the forums or the OU blog, you're more than welcome. We're happy to help you. You can reach out to us by email at help@collaborate.ucsb.edu. We can respond via email, or we're also happy to set up a Zoom consultation, a one-on-one consultation to walk you through things if you either need some additional clarifications for what we've discussed today, or if you were trying to do something specific and you'd like to chat to us about it. We're available for those Zoom consultations, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. We have 7 of us instructional design assistants who are on call to help you when you need. We appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time and joining us today to discuss some of the features of forums and the OU blog and how to create and maintain effective forums and blogs to facilitate student peer-to-peer dialogue as well as teacher-student dialogue. And then hopefully you maybe got a few helpful pedagogical ideas for different ways that you can actually use these forums and the OU blog in your own courses. Thanks again for joining us, and let us know how we can help.